What's up, guys? Keyshawn Uchiha here, back at you with another part to an alternate universe. Now, this will be part 2 of what if Deku was kidnapped and experimented on. Any of that, we're just going to just do a quick recap and give out the warnings and pretty much get to the next part. So where we last pretty much left off, Deku was pretty much, you could say, sick and dying until he got kidnapped by the Russians and pretty much experimented on. This is where he was pretty much put in a room and met with other people. And I will say the people's name right now. This is where he met, well, we're going to say 3 girls, and the 3 girls was named Kavera, Jane, and pretty much Eve. Now, this is where he pretty much asking how they got captured, and they explain how each and one of them, how they got captured and stuff. And this is where he pretty much was sent back to the experimental room and realized, well, pretty much experimenting more times, and pretty much had a metal arm replaced. Now, this is where he realized that he has unique abilities and stuff, and he can understand languages and stuff. This is where he begins to hear the Russians pretty much talking about killing them and blowing up the facility. This is where Deku pretty much told the girls that he was about to escape, and pretty much escaped. But before escaping, he pretty much rescued a boy, which the boy name was Kane, and also rescued a cat, which the cat name was Dexter. Now, pretty much they all escaped and went back to Japan, and they're pretty much went back to Deku's house to meet Inko, which they're staying there now, and Inko pretty much, welcomed her son back home and missed him. Now, this is where Deku pretty much got prepared and went to the entrance exams and pretty much passed and rescued Uraraka and pretty much head back home and got a acceptance letter saying that he passed. Now, that's, you could say, a quick recap. Now we're going to get to the new stuff. But, before that happens, make sure if we can get this up to probably 50 likes, then I would do a next part to the next video, and also share this with your friends, subscribe and all that stuff. But, let's get to the new parts. So, Deku pretty much is getting ready and stuff, and pretty much putting on his jacket and his tee. And sorry about that, had to pause the video, had to get some stuff done, but let's continue. Pretty much, Deku is getting his jacket set up and putting on his, his tee and stuff, and putting on his jeans and his boots, as he's pretty much going to the UA. Now, before he goes to the UA, this is where pretty much Jane pretty much stops Deku and pretty much gives him a glove that she pretty much was making for his other hand. Now, this is where Deku says thank you, and she pretty much telling him that make sure to come back home. Your mom is cooking a big meal for us, which Deku says okay. Now, Deku is pretty much walking until Bakugo runs beside him and pretty much says hey, which Deku says hey to Bakugo. Now, they're pretty much talking to each other and stuff. And Bakugo is pretty much saying, so, how did you get all those quirks? Which Deku is pretty much saying that those are not quirks. He pretty much was experimenting on, and he got these abilities from being experimented on. Which Bakugo says, so how was the experiment? Was it painful? Which Bakugo thought about it, and he says, oh, sorry about asking. Which Deku says, no, it's okay. Pretty much the experimenting was pretty much hell, as he's explaining it. He was, he pretty much explains about, like, constantly bleeding and stuff and just being in pain, which Bakugo pretty much is saying, sorry, he doesn't have to explain more, which Deku is pretty much saying, alright, and they pretty much continue going. Now, this is where they meet in the classroom, and they take their seats and stuff, and Bakugo puts up his seat. And this is where Idon, he comes, and he begins to, say his shit, showing his minority and stuff, and saying you can't put your feet on the desk, which this is where Bakugo says, shut the hell up, like, I care. Now, of course, this is where all the other students come in, and they're all introducing themselves and stuff. And this is where a new student comes in, and this is pretty much, a different student who pretty much is Native American. Now, this Native American person begins to you know is a foreign student, so he pretty much is talking native, which Deku begins to talk native too, which they're pretty much saying, you know, native, which Deku says, oh yeah, I gotta know some languages. Now this is where the native begins to talk and explain himself, and this is where, of course, Deku is making conversation, and he explains to everybody his name is Warhan, Warhan, and he's from this part of America, which everybody is pretty much saying, oh okay, and they begins to like introduce themselves and stuff, and everybody's having a good time. Now this is where, of course, Razorhead wakes up and he says, why is everybody being so loud? And they begins to he begins to look around, and he sees the whole student and stuff. He's saying, huh, interesting. Now this is where Dex the cat begins to yawn and go through a dimensional portal, and he pretty much appears right. Well, I wouldn't say he, a she appears right behind Deku, and pretty much starts to begins to start to lay on his shoulder. Now, this is where Deku says, Dexter, what are you doing here? Until Razorhead sees and says, is that a cat in my classroom? Which Deku says, I'm sorry. And he begins to say, I'll make sure to get her out of here, which Dexter. This is where Deku begins to let her out in the classroom, and Razorhead says, wait, you're not supposed to let the cat out in the classroom. She's just going to roam around until Dexter begins to teleport right back on Deku's desk. Now, this is where Deku realized that Dexter has teleporting abilities, or unique abilities, that can pretty much appear anywhere. Now, this is where, of course, Razorhead just says, whatever, just make sure the cat just doesn't poop or pee or anywhere. Which Deku begins to scratch his head, says, yes, sir. Now, this is where Razorhead says, everybody go outside, and everybody goes to the locker room and meet me outside. I'm going to test out if y'all worthy to be in class 1A. And if y'all not, you're going to get disqualified. Or get expelled from the school. Which, this is where, everybody's, you could say scared, but they say alright. And they all start heading to the locker rooms. Now, this is where, of course, Deku's getting dressed and stuff, and the cat, Dex, begins to, you could say, follow Deku around and stuff, and just be on his shoulder and stuff, or just, you could say, floating around, which the boys are pretty much just, which this is where we're going to say, Maneta, this Joker begins to say, wow, look like cats like you a lot, which Deku begins to laugh too and says, yeah, I guess so. Now, this is where all the boys and girls head out, and they begins to all be in line and stuff, which this is where the test begins to test if their quirks are all good and stuff. Now, everything pretty much goes as the same, except the ball throw. Deku begins to be in second because of Uraka and her gravity and her infinite gravity thing. Now, no one gets disqualified or expelled. Everybody passes with ease. We're gonna just say that. Now, the hero versus villain arc. Now, this is where, of course, Deku is pretty much getting their hero costume ready and stuff. Deku pretty much doesn't have a hero costume. Pretty much just asks for a suit, which they give him a suit, which it's pretty much kind of the Winter Soldier setup, but kind of not as wearing the mask and glasses. He pretty much has a helmet on, and yeah, you could say have a mask, but his metal arm is showing out, and his other side is just covered up. Now, this is where Deku is coming out, and his suit is ready, which he doesn't have a star on it. He pretty much just has a. He doesn't have a star on his arm or his metal arm or anything. It's just a metal arm. Now, this is where everybody's looking at Deku saying, sorry, this is where everybody's looking at Deku saying, wow, nice hero costume, which, Deku says thank you. including Bakugo complimenting too, because like I said, Bakugo is not a dickhead, so it's quite different. Now, this is where everything goes the same. Now, this is where the teams is going to be a little bit different. Uh, Uraraka Uraraka is going to be on Bakugo's team, and War Warhan will be on Deku's team. Now, since Deku understands his language and stuff, and they can understand each other. Now, as they're pretty much walking to the building, this is where Rohan is pretty much saying, "What's the plan?" And Deku is pretty much explaining what what quirk does he have, and Rohan says that he has a unique quirk, but what is the plan? Which basically Deku explains him to he basically needs to get on top of the building while he distracts Bakugo, and Warhorn pretty much says okay, and he pretty much his quirk is going to be unique as for ghost walk ability, as he can turn himself into a ghost or unliving being, and he can go through buildings and stuff or fly, kind of like Dane Phantom. Think of it like that, but a little bit different. Now Warhorn pretty much do the ghost walk, and he pretty much starts to go in the building and reach up top of the rooftop and waves his hand, which Deku says that's a cool unique quirk, and Deku begins to go inside. Now, as Deku's going the side and stuff, this is where Bakugo begins to throw explosions, and he pretty much stops himself and sees Deku. Now, Deku and Bakugo pretty much has well, you could say a stare down, and Deku sa- says to Bakugo, "What you gonna do?" Which this is where Bakugo throws not a heavy explosion, but a light explosion at Deku, still thinking that Deku is still not strong and stuff. Which Deku pretty much using his breath, he pretty much blows it away, blows his explosions away, and says, "Is that all you got?" And pretty much flies to Bakugo and slams him to the wall. Now this is where Bakugo gets a little bit more serious, gets more serious now, and begins to let out bigger explosions, which one hits Deku, and Deku pretty much backs away, pretty much a little bit scraped, but not that much. Now Deku is pretty much, using X-ray to see where's Warhorn at, and Warhorn is pretty much almost at the bomb. Now this is where, of course, Uraraka is looking around and trying to see where's the other person at. Until Deku grabs Bakugo and he slams Bakugo up a couple of stairs, which Bakugo is pretty much getting up, coughing up a little bit of saliva and blood. It pretty much says, "Huh, you got a little bit more stronger, Deku." Which Deku says, "Yeah. So have you?" This is where Rohan touched the bomb, and you guessed it, heroes win. Now everybody's talking about how that fight was awesome and stuff, and Deku was saying, "Yeah, thank you" and stuff. Now this is where, of course, Deku is pretty much walking home and stuff, and Rohan pretty much stops Deku and tells him that thanks for being his partner today and stuff, which Deku says it's no problem. It's no problem. Sorry, I'm back. But pretty much, Warhan's pretty much thanking Deku for being his partner today and for understanding, and he's working better on his English, which Deku says it's alright. And Deku begins to heading home. Now Deku pretty much heads home, and Jane, all of them are all there, including Kane. He's sleeping, still of course sleeping. Now, this is where of course Deku comes comes to sit down and begins to eat, eat at the table, and everybody else begins to eat. Begins to eat at the table. Now, of course, everybody's talking stuff, and Kane is pretty much sleeping. Now, this is where
Sean, how is that
I said, I said, all right, hold on. But yeah, pretty much they're all eating and stuff and talking about how it was their day, and everybody's saying their day is good and stuff. Now, this is where Deku begins to say, all right, and they get done eating, and Deku goes in his room. Now, as Deku's going in his room, this is where he lays down in his bed and stuff, and pretty much starts to dream. Now, this dream is kind of as one of his new powers, and it's called Future Seeing. Now, this is where he's seeing the future of pretty much the Russian, uh, you could say the ones who was a part of that project is going after them and shooting, and pretty much Kane gets shot and pretty much dies, and he wakes up and he says, "What was that?" Now that now this is part two of What If Deku was kidnapped and experimenting on. If you like, leave a comment, do all that stuff. But I'm Keisha Cheetah. Thanks for watching and peace out.
It looks like you lost another one.